Hey everyone, and welcome to the program. Ethiopia has accused Egypt of trying to maintain its grip over the waters of the Nile with a proposal that he says would imperil a giant hydropower dam under construction on Ethiopia's Blue Nile. The comment highlights the difficulties finding a compromise between the two countries over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD. Two rounds of talks over the past month in Egypt and Sudan failed to produce progress. So how did it all get here, and what are the issues? First, Ethiopia began constructing the Grand Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile in the year 2012, saying the project is needed for electricity. But Egypt is concerned that the huge dam will severely reduce its water supplies and says it has historic rights to the river guaranteed by decades-old treaties. Ruth.
And recently, Cairo, which fears that the construction of the Great Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile will reduce the river flow, on which it depends on for 90% of its water supply, called for international mediation in the negotiations. In a statement issued on Saturday by the Ministry of Irrigation, analysts believe that the absence of an agreement between Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt could lead to conflict between the three countries that will generate troubling humanitarian consequences.
Entre ces trois pays, l'Égypte, le Soudan et l'Éthiopie, pourrait susciter un conflit entre ces pays et avoir des conséquences humanitaires.
All right. William Davidson is the senior Ethiopia analyst for the crisis group. He joins us now via Skype. Good morning to you, and thank you for being with us, William. So the dam talks have been held for years, but what are the main issues here? What's responsible for the current deadlock or stalemate?
Well, there's a number of potential answers to that. Depending on whether we're looking at the specifics of this project itself or whether we're looking at sort of deeper and longer historical factors. To put that clearly, Egypt is concerned that Ethiopia is building a dam which will prevent an amount of water flowing downstream which will prove to have a negative impact on Egypt, which relies on the Nile for all of its waters. So it's specifically concerned about this project, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. But Egypt also has broader concerns, which is that until this project, upstream countries had not embarked on such large-scale developments. And therefore, there is also a concern from Cairo that Ethiopia undertaking this project could be the catalyst for a series of developments on the Nile, which would threaten Egypt's water supply. So it's concerned about that sort of overall diplomatic situation. The Renaissance Dam is a massive investment for Ethiopia and is something that the government and many of the people hope will have a transformative economic effect, helping to industrialize Ethiopia. They want to finish the project as quickly as possible, and they want it to produce as much power as quickly as possible.
Well, let me come in here. This is seen mostly as Ethiopia-Egypt issue, but many upstream countries are opposing Egypt. How much support do you think is there really for Ethiopia from countries such as Uganda, Kenya, and South Sudan?
Well, I think that there's a certain amount of support for the Ethiopian, what is an assertive Ethiopian position as expressed through the decision to construct this dam essentially unilaterally. And that's accompanied by concerns about the historic and prevailing Egyptian position. And just to demonstrate or explain that Egyptian position, Egypt says that the amount of water allocated to it by colonial era treaties and the 1959 treaty it signed with Sudan, which allocates most of the river's water to Egypt, some to Sudan and the rest to evaporation. Egypt says that those treaties, which none of the upstream Nile countries were party to, they say they are still the legal frameworks that govern the allocation of the Nile's water. So understandably, for many Nile nations, there is concern about that Egyptian position, and there's a desire to see a new legal framework governing the use of the Nile waters, which all Nile countries are party to.
Indeed, and going by all that you've also said, the back and forth on the issue, do you see any prospects for a deal?
Most observers agree that there is a technical, there's an opportunity for a technical compromise on hydrological issues there, something where Ethiopia can fill the dam at a reasonable rate and generate considerable amounts of electricity and impound the sufficient water to do so without unduly harming Egypt. So the technical grounds for a compromise exists, and that's important to remember. The issue is the politics and the diplomacy. There we need to see, I think, steps taken, such as Egypt recognizing that the colonial era treaties, or the treaties that the Upper Nile countries were not party to, are now outdated, and that a new legal framework is needed to govern equitable use of the Nile. That would be an important step from Egypt that would signal to Ethiopia that its concerns are understood. So we need to see these types of conciliatory measures from both parties, and then that will hopefully create the political atmosphere to arrive at this technical consensus, which most experts see as being perfectly achievable.